Armenia is a beautiful house in a bad neighborhood. It's a tiny Christian country that's surrounded by Muslim nations that are either ambivalent or outright hostile. This video is sponsored by Aura, and if you travel internationally like I do and end up spending a lot of time in dive hotels like this, or even if you don't own a passport, you need to hear this. One time I connected to a hotel Wi-Fi in some backwater country like this one, and guess what? Within minutes, some joker hacked my Facebook account and changed the whole thing to Vietnamese. Took me 3 weeks to get it back. Not fun. So that's why I use Aura now. It's not just a VPN, it's a full suite of digital body armor. You get military-grade encryption to keep your browsing private, even at sketchy hotel Wi-Fis like this one, a password manager, real-time credit monitoring, and alerts if your info hits the dark web, which, let's be honest, it probably has already. With one click, Aura locks down your identity and keeps the cyber creeps out, whether you're in West Virginia or West Africa or Kyrgyzstan like I am now. So go to aura.com/hotzone to get protected and get a discount for just being one of my viewers. Again, that's aura.com/hotzone. Trust me, it's way easier than trying to explain to Facebook why your name is suddenly Nguyen Van Chuck. So get it now. We'll see you.
The Nagorno-Karabakh region was mostly quiet between 1994 and 2020, when the Azeris decided to take Artsakh and destroy the Armenians. While the rest of the world was preoccupied with fighting COVID, Azerbaijan launched a full-scale war against Armenia in September 2020. With Turkey's help, Azerbaijan pressed their advantage, showing they had every intention of wiping out the 150,000 Armenians living in Artsakh.
On September 27th, after 30 years of provocative actions on the borders, with help of Turkey, sponsored financially by the oil revenue that Azerbaijan enjoys, and that anti-Armenian genocidal rhetoric of Turkey, 105 years later after the Armenian genocide, it's happening again.
Azerbaijan has one thing going for it, and that's a lot of oil and gas. So they've been using their oil and gas revenues for the last 30 years to build up their armed forces. And when they got to the point in 2020 where they felt like they could get away with it, they attacked Armenia, and their stated goal was to wipe out the people of Artsakh and take back that territory. When I heard about this conflict, I knew I had to go cover it. And I was fascinated when I got to Armenia to learn about the country and to see the incredible scenery and the good food and the cheap prices and the friendly people and this beautiful country that reminded me of the Europe that I knew as a youth. So when I got to Armenia, I stayed the night in a hotel and I found a fixer and a driver, and then they took me into Artsakh, which is about a 4-hour drive. The drive into Artsakh was pretty scary because there was a lot of fighting going on around the main road. And so my driver, who was a former off-road racing driver, was putting the pedal to the metal. And I felt like if I make it to Artsakh in one piece, it's going to be a miracle. We made it to Stepanakert. We put ourselves up in a hotel where all the other journalists were put up, and proceeded to get shelled on a daily basis the entire time I was there.
We've got a pretty big barrage coming in right now. The scary thing is you just never know where these things are going to land. I mean, it's just random. Sometimes they land close and sometimes they land far away. Sometimes you have warning and sometimes you don't. It could be artillery. It could be a giant missile. I've seen what those missiles will do, and if that missile lands anywhere near us, all the body armor and even concrete walls in the world are not going to help you a whole lot, because those missiles are enormous. It's exhausting.
Azerbaijan was shelling the capital city, 150,000 people, many of whom had already fled, but there were still tens of thousands of people left. And Azerbaijan was just literally randomly shelling that city. They were not aiming for military targets. They were, if anything, aiming specifically for civilian targets. This is Rosa. She's 83, and she was sleeping in that room right behind me when this bomb flattened her house. This was a very large bomb. And this is not near any military objective or anything. It's just random bombing of civilian areas by Azerbaijan, supported by Turkey. And their strategy was pretty easy to discern. They wanted to drive out the people of Stepanakert, to make it so uncomfortable and so dangerous, so deadly to live there, that they would just pick up and leave, and then Azerbaijan would be able to just walk in and take the city without a fight. So you see this car right here was hit by cluster munitions. All of these little holes are from the thousands of projectiles that are thrown out by these things. They are definitely not meant for civilian areas. They're meant for troops in the open. And it's like a giant shotgun aimed at this civilian area.
After 44 days of brutal fighting, Armenia had lost almost 5,000 men. 5,000 sons, husbands, daddies. Everyone in Armenia knew someone who was killed. Only when it looked like Azerbaijan was set to take the capital of Stepanakert did the Russian Federation step in and broker a ceasefire on November 9. As part of the agreement, 8,000 Russian peacekeepers were sent to safeguard the area, but more than 150,000 families were displaced, and many of them found it hard to return.
My biggest regret was that I only got to spend a little bit of time in Armenia on that first trip. And it's impossible to fit Armenia into a 4-minute news feature. However, this story doesn't have the same impact on me as it would have on somebody who hadn't spent so much time in the war zone. So I got the idea to tell the story of the war against Armenia through the eyes of a couple of young people, specifically my daughter Amy and her friend Mark. And that's where this documentary was born.
When we made that first crossing into Stepanakert, there was a bridge that was bombed out, and that kind of marked like the understanding of, okay, we're in an area that people die here.
There were burned cars, there were whole villages that were completely deserted, which was like surreal to see, really sad too, because people had their whole lives there and then they were forced to leave.
Is this the Azeris?
No, this is Russian.
The old lady was so sweet, and that was definitely the most impactful part of the whole trip for me. It started out, we were walking around her yard basically, and her house had been like half blown up. And in the US, if you were walking around someone's yard, they would be like, get my shotgun, like, get out of my yard. But this old lady came out, she was probably like in her 70s, and she came out and was like, come inside, and like had us come inside. She barely had anything to serve us, and Armenians are so hospitable and so generous. And so her neighbor ran to the store, bought her a bunch of like treats so that she wouldn't be embarrassed that she had nothing to offer us. And she put it on this whole spread, and I remember she was talking to me, and I had no idea what she was saying because she was speaking Armenian. But her house was crumbling. Like, it was the middle of winter. She didn't have a door. Her walls were crumbling and falling apart. If you touched them, the wall would crumble on you. And there were, like, she had no windows. It was just like plastic tarp against the winter, which Like, that's insane. I remember her saying that she had been through 3 wars. And I remember thinking, like, how can you be so sweet when you've seen, like, the brokenness in our world? And you're so sweet and generous. Like, she's seen, like, terrible stuff. And she would welcome a stranger into her home and put on a whole spread for us. That was just, and she, like, waved us goodbye and gave us kisses.
The one thing that Armenia needs most is recognition. If more people knew about Armenia, then more people would come to Armenia. So I knew that the best thing I could do to help would be to bring more people to Armenia, and that's what we did. My middle son, Nathan, is a great adventurer like I am, and he had just finished a job in Costa Rica, was flush with cash, and so he decided to come with us on that first trip. And he enjoyed it so much that as the end of the trip neared, he came to me and he said, "Dad, I'm not done here."
I don't know if it's on or not.
I didn't want to go home when the end of the tour came around. 10-day tour was amazing. I fell in love with the country. It was beautiful. The history was incredible. So I told my dad, I said, "Hey, I'm not ready to go home. I want to stay here. I want to go exploring. I want to do something more."
So I got a phone call from Nathan one night, and he said, "Dad, there's this girl that I've been seeing." They had gotten together, had coffee, and next thing you know, I'm getting this phone call from my son, and he's saying, "Dad, how did you know that Mom was the one that you wanted to marry?" And I said, "Well, son, it's not about finding the right one. It's about being the right one." And I said, "When you feel like you're ready, then you can choose the woman that God brings to you, and you'll make her happy for the rest of her life." And I think he took that advice to heart. So that second trip back to Armenia was far different. We had a much bigger crowd, about 25 people, and we already knew the country, so we knew right where to go, and we knew some of the best restaurants, and we're getting good at this tour thing now. But the thing that made it the most special was right in the middle of the tour, we had a wedding.
Oh my gosh, you're so beautiful. We're gathered here in God's presence to witness the exchange of their marriage vows. The very way that you met Rubina has God's fingerprints all over. Because of all the places you've traveled, to have been at a roadside restaurant, an hour from Yerevan, at the same time as Rubina, well, let's just say it was God who wrote the first paragraph of your relationship, your history together. And since that first meeting, you have managed to do something that no one else ever has, and that is to completely capture this woman's heart.
In the presence of God and before our family and friends,
I, Rubina, take you, Nathan,
to be my husband.
to be my husband,
I, Nathan, take you, Rubina, to be my wife.
to have and to hold, from this day forward, you guys in happiness and death,
London shall warn sickness and death, in joy and in sorrow,
to love us,
and to be faithful to you alone.
as long as we both shall live.
I do.
I do.
When I was at the wedding of Nathan and Rubina, I was reminded of Romans chapter 8, where God says that he, for those that love him, that are called to his purposes, that he works out all things together for good. And the war was not a good thing. But out of the ashes, out of war, God brings a couple together from two different worlds, two different countries, but he uses even this difficult thing of war to bring people together to have a marriage for a lifetime.
Throughout history, many have sought to destroy this tiny country. Today is no different. But while this tribe has suffered greatly, their faith has brought redemption from the ashes, time and time again. Here in the shadow of this sacred mountain, that faith shines like a guiding star, illuminating a path through the darkest of times. To visit is to dive headfirst into a land of fervent passion, where the embrace of family runs deep, intertwined with the wisdom of generations. Here you start to see how the land itself bears witness to incredible tales of survival and grit, a silent testament to the resilience of its people. This vibrant tapestry of traditions, culture, and hope ensures that those who journey here will uncover a new love story. A story called Armenia.